Um, so I think we are now recording.
Looks like it.
Yeah. Okay. So with us this evening from Dartmouth, we've every time I touch the screen it jumps. So we've got Keone Ocalvi, Savannah Cochran, Camille Pauly, Andres Rosales, Chris Drake, and I think underneath my control panel there, Evan Christo, right? So there we go. So these guys have been working with us all fall and through the winter. They're a great team and of very talented engineers, and we're super happy that these members of the Thayer School of Engineering at Dartmouth decided to take some of their time and help the trail project along. We've also got Lelia Mellon, who's the New Hampshire Projects Director for the National Park Service Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. And Lelia, can I ask you to say a few words about
Sure.
your program?
Sure. So hello, everyone. I work for this outreach program of the National Park Service, as Tim said, the Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. And we work with community groups on outdoor recreation and conservation projects. So Tim found us and applied for our assistance. And so I've been helping them in a variety of ways. And together we found out about this Dartmouth Engineering program. And so we're super happy to have these guys helping us. So glad to be here.
Thanks. And Mike Lambert, I don't think he's online yet, but he's a state certified wetland scientist out of Henniker. He's been walking bits and pieces of this rail trail or railroad corridor with me since 2013 as I've been picking his brain. So he's been a great help and is, I'm sure we'll hear more from Mike later. We've got a number of board members from the Concord-Lake Sunapee Rail Trail, Boyd Smith from Concord, David White and Fred Nystrom from Hopkinton. Kristen Riley is here, Jim Sherman and Jason Muchler, myself, Derek Lick out of Sutton, and Charles Cotley out of Newbury. It's a great board. If you don't know these folks, seek them out. They all have tremendous talents, and that's why we're able to get things done on this project. So we do a few introductions. I don't know how we're doing on time. I'm going to do a quick recap of where we've been. So if you're a Warner resident or haven't seen very much action in your town, this will explain where we've been busy. And then I'm going to turn it over to the Dartmouth team, who's going to explain some of the projects we've got coming up in Warner. So in Concord, I move things out of the way, I'll be able to talk. We got access to a 2.5 mile piece of rail trail, and on the upper right-hand part of your screen in green is the first phase. We completed that in June of 2020 at a cost of just under $100,000. The yellow section in the top graphic, we put that in the ground in December. We will finish that piece with the top coat in the spring. We couldn't put that down because of frost. So we need good compaction capabilities to be able to put that final coat down and pack that in. And then the red section we plan to do later this year. And we have an estimate of that for about $47,000. And then the last 1.25 miles all the way down to Fisherville Road is we're currently writing grants for that, including the parking area at Fisherville Road. We expect it to be a $200,000 project. So that's what's happening in Concord. In Kentucky and Davisville, the green section in the middle of the trail, in the middle of your screen, is the Stevens Rail Trail. We completed that in October of 2019. That was about a $115,000 project. We also ties in to the Houston Fields, which brings you to the library and the senior center. That stretch of the trail we get for free. You'll see also in yellow down on the lower right-hand side of the screen, a connection to go from the library over to Kearsarge Avenue. We have an estimate of about $70,000 to build that section of trail. And we've been waiting for some land that was owned by the telephone company to be transferred to town hands. And then we can start in earnest to work on that as a project. And then in the top in blue, we have access to the Davisville State Forest to do a piece there, but we've also been talking with the landowner across the street who has plans to do a retail set of stores and would like the trail to go over his land. So there's another connection to be made up in Davisville. In Warner, on the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see the first half mile of the trail that we built back in 2014. And then in October of 2017, we made that piece at Bagley Field a little bit longer. At the same time, we also did the story walk section of the trail in downtown Warner. That's in the upper left of the screen. And we're going to spend most of tonight talking about the section in yellow, which goes from Bagley Bridge up to exit 8 and is estimated at about a $77,000 project. And then in orange and red, the big project through the median. And finally, we did in Bradford in 2018, the short section at the Appleseed Restaurant down to Gillingham Drive. And then that picks up to the Tilly Wheeler Trail, which had its base. We had the ditching redone and some better material brought in. And we're working with Bradford right now to see if we can get in on their TAP grant application. So they've put in a Transportation Alternatives Program grant to do the piece in black, which is a sidewalk project, but they're interested in seeing if we can attach a piece of the rail trail to that project to help that score a little better. And then we're also looking to do the Church Street to West Main Street section in orange. So those are the pieces of trail that we have down in the different towns we've been working in. And now what I'd like to do is take a minute to throw control over to the Dartmouth team. Or do you guys want to just tell me to go next slide and I can do next slide for you? Or do you want speaker notes?
I think just next slide is good by us, if you're all right taking care of that. Great. So hello, everyone. We're the Dartmouth Engineering Team. My name's Evan. With me today is Andreas, Camille, Chris, and Keone. First off, just wanted to thank everyone for coming and also give a special thanks to Tim and the Friends of the Concord-Lake Sunapee Rail Trail for providing us the opportunity to have this hands-on experience working with them. And then also special thanks to Lilia for all her help and support along the way. So today, as Tim mentioned, our team's going to be talking to you about the Warner Extension Trail project. So that's the exit 9 down to exit 8, and then the exit 8, or the Warner Village to exit 8, and then the exit 8 to Bagley Field. So as you can see here, we have our project area, which runs from, in the top left, Warner Village, down underneath the I-89 overpass, through the median, as Tim's tracing out, thanks Tim, and then down to that end of section marker by the exit 8. So our role on this project has included a few main components. The first being just developing a better understanding of the project area. So for example, identifying the challenging landscapes, determining the flood and stormwater risk, and then identifying sensitive flora and fauna in the area. Then using this knowledge, the second major component has been researching and identifying different design practices and the best management practices to determine, what type of trails are least impactful to the ecosystem and maybe which trails are least susceptible to flood damage and things like that. And then finally, our last component has been creating potential trail options for alignments and designs and doing our best to follow the identified best practices while also balancing other factors such as cost and feasibility. And as you can see here, some important design features we also considered were one, accessibility. So we really want to make this trail accessible to every and all users. So doing that, we've been looking at the ADA, American with Disability Act, those requirements, and trying to design our trail based to those. So that includes things like trail width, trail slope, trail grade. And then also an important consideration in that we're around the Warner River is reducing environmental impact. So so recognizing the sensitive species and flora and fauna in there and doing our best to mitigate the impact. And then also promoting environmental awareness. So as Tim talked to us a lot about, they really hope this section of trail to be an educational experience as well. So in being so close to this local ecosystem, having that opportunity to educate on it as well. You can go to the next slide, Tim. Thanks.
So yeah, kind of like Evan was just mentioning, here are some of the key design challenges that we have when doing some of our trail work and doing some of the research we've been up to. So one of the main challenges is that for much of this section, there's not really any existing rail grade left. It was mostly all taken up in the construction of I-89. So that's one of the main challenges. So the land is very uneven, the topography is pretty challenging, as opposed to most of the trail, which is built over existing grade. And is very easy to kind of build over, or a lot simpler. Additionally, there are some tricky riprap cross slopes that we have underneath I-89 north and south crossings, as well as Route 103. And these we'll go more into later, but they'll likely need to be crossed by building either retaining walls or some kind of boardwalk structure. And then lastly, like we kind of mentioned earlier, there are a lot of sections of wetland that we need to cross that border the Warner River. And so we would like to have as little damage and retain the environment as well as we possibly can when building this trail. Next slide, Tim.
You want me to jump next one?
Sorry, Tim. My Wi-Fi just dropped me. I'm back though.
Okay. You want me to keep going?
Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. I'm good now, I think. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. So this is just an example of how the trail will go along the Warner River. This is near the Bagley Field section, but would be the continuation to exit 8. And so much of our trail would go along the river and hopefully be a destination at the end of the trail for people to visit and enjoy the local beauty. Next slide, Tim.
Oh.
Yep. So as Tim mentioned earlier, this is kind of one section that we can divide our part of the trail into, the Bagley to Exit 8 project. This is the section here that we're looking at. So if you look at the bottom where the blue meets the yellow, that's where the existing trail ends. And then the yellow line where this section would be focused on. Where the blue meets the yellow, there's already a little kind of overlook next to the Bagley Bridge that could potentially be a nice area for picnic benches or things like that for people to enjoy the local views of the river. Next slide. Next slide, Tim.
Got him?
Oh, can you go back one?
Sure.
Great. So these are just some different specs about this part of the trail. So the total span is 2,500 feet roughly. It has fairly intact railroad grade as opposed to the section we will talk about after this. There's one washout we need to span with likely some kind of boardwalk or small bridge structure. The project, like I was just mentioning, would deliver a view of the Warner River at its endpoint, pretty close to where the Bagley Bridge is. It's outside of the federal highway and NHDOT land. And additionally, possible funding source for this project is the Recreational Trails Program. And so more on funding in the next slide. Sorry, next slide, Tim. So here's some estimated costs for this section of the trail. $7,100 for the 9 acres that was in the previous slide, and then $3,600 for the 2.09 acres. And this would be paid for by the town of Warner. The build costs are quoted at roughly $62,000 right now. And then some additional acquisition costs that are either already paid for by CLSRT or would be paid for are the land survey costs, the phase 1 archaeological study, and fence installation along the highway. Next slide, Tim.
Okay, so sorry, my bad. My interest also was acting pretty weird. So the project has a few key features such as not existing road grade, repair slopes crossing by I-89 North, I-89 South, and Route 103. Additionally, the area also has considerable wetland presence. And as Chris mentioned earlier, some of the challenges we're facing are at the pinch point. We're considering either having boardwalk-like structures or rail cars. We're also considering placing causeways or wrap trails and boardwalks around the floodplain section. And something that we're also considering is the wildlife and the habitat. That's something we're always talking with our stakeholders, making sure that we are addressing all the concerns. And some of the funding from this project is coming from organizations like TAP, Build, and Q2C Partnership, and others. Next slide, Tim. So this and the following couple of slides are renderings by the Pelletier Associates. So basically what this shows in this slide is what the rail trail could look like at several points passing under the I-89 southbound lanes. And you can see the highway median area on the left of the image. Next slide, please, Tim. So here at the pinch point, we have the northbound lanes on the left and the southbound I-89 bridge in the background. And again, this is what it could look like having a boardwalk, or it could be some other structure once the rail trail is finished. Next slide, please, Tim.
Sure. And by pinch point, what we're talking about is there's very little space between the northbound lane and the river there, so that it's really a challenge to get a trail through this piece.
Yeah, and here in this next slide, this is another one of our challenges. We have repair slopes under Route 103, I-89 north and south. So what we could potentially do is have retaining walls or boardwalks. And I think this picture, it would actually look a little bit, the structure would be a little lower. But yeah, this is what it would look like once we have structure there under Route 103. Next slide, please, Tim.
So after that introduction, we'll walk you all through a portion of the work we've done so far. Go to the next slide, please, Tim. So because this section of the Warner River is a floodplain, and that's an essential function of this area, we developed a hydraulic model of the reach that would parallel the trail. And this model will help us predict potential flood depths as well as flow velocities, so that we can design the trail to prevent and avoid damage and scour. You might go to the next slide. And in addition, we're paying special attention to the terrain and wetlands, to the terrain and the wetlands present in this area. And here's some terrain data that we've been working with from the UNH database. And from this, we're able to get a better look at the terrain below the vegetation cover, and of course now below the snow cover. Next slide, please. There we go. So here you can see some results from this data showing the bare terrain. And Mike Lambert, with his years of expertise as a soil scientist, pointed out to us the major alterations to this landscape from the construction of I-89. So this previous alteration and disturbance to the land provides us with an opportunity for some wetland restoration, as well as hopefully a net improvement of the wetland function of this area.
Some of the trail structures we have considered to prevent flooding and reduce erosion in the floodplain sections are turnpikes and causeways. So essentially, a turnpike is a structure that would elevate a trail of soil by using logs or rocks as retainers, and will have ditches on both sides of the trail. By having a turnpike sausage or encapsulation technique, which is pictured on the left, the top layer of the soil would stay dry. A causeway, pictured on the lower right, is very similar to a turnpike, but it does not have side ditches and uses rocks as retainers. Although causeways can sink into the ground in highly saturated soils, this can be prevented by using geotextiles, which would allow for water to pass through but still prevents silt. And additionally, by adding a geocell, pictured on the upper right, we can ensure that the fill remains in place even after sinking. And I apologize for my dog. On the next slide, Tim. On the next slide, we have some the boardwalk design. So some of the boardwalk structures that we have especially considered for riprap slopes under I-89 North, I-89 South, and Route 103. On the left, you can see one of our models and some of our analysis, to the right. With the one on the left, we have one of our models. So we consider ABA standards, such as a 1/2 inch maximum gap between boards on the deck, 8 feet vertical clearance. I believe it's 42 inches for the handrail. And there's some other regulations that we also consider for the model. And on the right, we have a load analysis of our boardwalk. And this model particularly shows the deformation on the respective loads. And one thing to note here is that this is not the final model that we have chosen for the boardwalk, but yeah, this is the work we have so far.
Oh, yeah. So for the past 2 weeks, we've been running a community survey that was distributed through a lot of Tim's connections throughout the towns. And I want to thank any of you guys in the audience who filled it out for us. And we had a pretty good participation with 249 responses. And as you can see, like from people's zip codes, the majority were from the local area, with 148 from Heinecker, Salisbury, Warner, and Sutton, and 39 from Hopkinton. And overall, like from all the results, we had a very positive response. And overall, 245 out of the 249 approved the extension of the project as now. On the next. So yeah, like here's a graph of the responses to that question. You can see that like 91% had said they would approve of it with no considerations, and only like 2 or 3 click the no. Yeah, on the next slide. And here's like some example of the glowing responses from the community, such as how it'd be amazing to ride from Concord-Lake to Warner to like grab lunch and coffee, which would increase the economic spending and then being able to ride home. Participants also stated how it increased the quality of life there and become a great asset to the town. Yeah, these are just like a couple examples of what people said. This graph shows that like over 70% of the respondents would use the trail themselves. Another 26 would maybe use it, which is pretty big. And like the maybe is probably like they have a couple things that maybe would want. So maybe like almost 96% like it, yeah. Oh, the next slide. Some other good results were that, like digging deeper into demographics, we saw that 246 out of 249 visit Warner frequently, as in like at least once a month, 20% visit every day, and 40% visit a couple times a week. So like these are people who would be using our trail frequently. Also, 95% of the participants with children said that they would let their children use the rail trail section alone to commute between the Bagley Fields and Warner. And 74.3% said that meeting accessibility guidelines was important to them. And that's like one of our main considerations. So it's good that we're looking into that. And then one new thing that we're looking into because of the survey was that 17 of the respondents said that they would appreciate signage in Abenaki in addition to English. And like other people wanted informational signage with Abenaki place names and practices. So we're currently working with like Dartmouth's Native American program and some other places to like translate the signs and maybe make some other informational signs with Abenaki place names and practices. Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much, folks. Appreciate you all pulling that together and the work that you've done. So we have a few people that may have questions. So if anybody wants to ask a question, just be sure to unmute yourself first. And then you can have the floor. Don't be bashful. All right. Well,
Tim, this is Nancy Ladd.
Yep.
And I'm very impressed with the study and the slides, and I'm wondering if you're going to post the slideshow anywhere where other people who couldn't make it tonight can see it.
Sure. Yeah, we'll do that. Absolutely.
Right? So
No,
let me
this
know
is
where it's
all-
going to be.
Yeah. There we go. Thank you, Boyd. Yeah, no, it was a really good job. These guys have put a lot into it, and we're all learning every day. So I think it's going to be a really good project. I was super excited to hear Mike Lambert's assessment of the land in the interstate median. We know that sensitive area. We know it floods. One of my concerns was not, is it going to flood, but does the water just come up and then go down, or is it rushing through where we put the trail? It makes a huge difference as to whether you're going to have a trail after the flood or not. And we think we can get some good, we can find a good place for it in there. There are some very well-drained soils in there. And he also said, just to say it again, that we actually have the chance to improve the wetland functionality in that space, because a lot of that land is disturbed. And as we go into construct trail, we have an opportunity to put it back better than it is today. So make more shallow water wetlands that would be good for creatures and last a long time. So that was really exciting. So
I have a question.
yeah.
This is Christine. Sorry again about my video, but there's two parcels of land in what I was listening to. Are those the only two parcels of land that need to be purchased, the 9 acres and the 2 acres?
So those have been purchased.
Okay.
So it was a culmination of a walk from just the other day. We started October of 2013. We walked across the bridge that's in the background behind my head. And with Federal Highway and DOT and the Planning Commission and the Conservation Commission, and we walked up to Exit 8 and actually all the way up to the village side. And we asked Federal Highway and DOT, if you're never going to let us build a trail here, say no now. Otherwise, we'll start. And they said if we got them a really good plan, they'd let us, it could go ahead. As far as they were concerned, they don't have the only say. So we then kicked off the process to get the 9 acre parcel, which we thought at the time was sufficient. We learned a little bit about where the railroad grade was on that parcel, and it actually fell off that parcel into the interstate. So we had to go back sort of hat in hand to DOT and go, well, you either give us an easement to use the railroad grade, or will you sell us an extra little piece? And they preferred us to be outside of their limited access right-of-way until the last moment. So they sold both pieces. Now, the first piece was a real huge win for the Conservation Commission, because it's got floodplain forest down in there. There's some rare species. It's turtle habitat. We don't want trail users to go down into that space, but the railroad grade is like at a level like this, and the rest of that land is down about 10 feet. And so we think we can do a good job of managing trail users up here and leaving the natural space that the Conservation Commission cares about alone. And underneath that whole space is a huge aquifer that's under the river that is also important to preserve. So that was a major win there. And then the little sliver is of less conservation value, but huge for our effort. And by asking the town to spend that extra $3,000 to get that sliver, it achieves a couple of things. If we're able to build a trail, we've already taken care of the cost of the survey work and of the archaeological survey. We'll put up the fence. So together that saves the town $15,000. Now, I think the town all day long would spend 3 to save 15. And it doesn't, and where the trail would be would have a very minor impact on the high natural values that are closer to the river. So that deal completed, I guess, end of last month, where we just got the recorded deeds back for the town. So that's now town land. And the rest is federal highway land. That's going to be another ask. May we now go through with a plan that we're having to pull together. This is the beginning of that.
Nice.
Long answer for a short question, but it's how we get there. We lean in gently every day, learn, figure out what's next. But to me, it looks doable, right? And beneficial. So folks, I don't know, Greg, Ray, Jim, any questions, comments? Okay.
No.
All right.
Hey, Tim, I have a question. Can
Yeah.
you hear me? This
Yes.
is Jim Dudley. We live down in right off exit 7. And first, I just want to say thanks for all the work you guys have done. We love the trail between here and Kentucky. Use it all the time, and it's great. My question, and I think I know the answer to it, is: are there any plans to connect the end of the trail at Davisville up to Bagley? I know it's a lot of private land between there and.
Yeah.
Are there any
So
plans?
right. So yeah, we're chipping away at that. The town of Warner has just in 2020, we picked up 2 more easements on parcels that the town of Warner owns. And we are working on another easement in that section. So I think all told from where 103 is down right at exit 7 up to Bagley, I think there's 10 parcels. I think there's 3 parcels south of Tom Pond Road and 7 between Tom Pond Road and Bagley. And we already have a couple of those north of Tom Pond Road and a few of them south of Tom Pond Road. So be patient, say good things about the trail, don't trespass. Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. If we could at least get you from exit 7 up to Tom Pond Road, then you'd be able to use Annis Loop if you were on a bike, which is not the trail, but at least you're off of Route 103. So.
Yep. Right. Yep. Oh, great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, I guess my question, my name's Greg Gage, and I'm up in Newberry. And so naturally, I'm just kind of sitting in here to find out what you guys are doing. I've read about you in the paper and I'm very interested in it. And I'm wondering, when are things moving up towards Newberry? And
Sure.
Can you elaborate on anything there?
Yeah, so at the parcel right behind Bubba's,
Yeah.
of the rail grade, that is at least half the width of the grade there is town owned. I think the town would be very willing to have us do an improvement there, but we don't like to do dead end parcels or projects. So the one time we've done that was at Bagley Field, where we created a section of rail trail that went nowhere. We did that because at the time we had to show people this is what a rail trail is.
Right.
So
You got to start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere, right? But having started, we can now point to that, and other pieces, and all the rest we want to do so that they're segments of independent utility. You start at one end and you get to someplace else. So we have talked with a few landowners in Newbury. We don't have anything to announce yet.
Okay.
You know, but I think the best thing we can do for Newbury at this point is to keep building out really visible sections in Bradford, where we may have easier access to some of the land, and make Newbury take a look at it and go, you know what, that's really cool.
Right.
And
Okay.
maybe we get there, you know. So you're not forgotten.
Well, I would think it's an important part of the Sunapee end of things. So, but I was just wondering what the strategy was, and I think you've answered that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Good. I just missed a comment. There's a few comments in the chat. Let me just. Yeah, good. Thanks. Anybody have anything else?
Yeah, just, you know, what are your needs? Like, how can people help?
Sure. So, yeah, we have an endless number of needs. I'm trying to, so organizationally, there's a lot of behind the scenes work that needs doing. So I find I like to go out and work on the trail. Every time I'm doing that, I'm not picking up the phone and dialing for support or doing other grant application work or database work. So there's lots of sort of office work that needs to be done there, and then just a myriad of things. Keeping our kiosks up to date. So if you want to adopt a kiosk, we now have kiosks in Concord and Hopkinton Library, Warner at Bagley Field, a small one right behind the library, and another one in Bradford. And the content's always out of date. So, you know, having somebody that would nag the board to generate fresh content that you could then print and post, that's a helpful thing.
Ah, okay.
You know, there's something specific, right?
So give me a kiosk. I'm happy to keep on track of one of them.
Sure. How about Bagley Field? Is that close enough to you, or would you want to be at right behind the library?
Oh, it doesn't matter. Yeah, Bagley's fine.
Bagley it is. Thank you
All right.
very much. I'll wait for your email saying where's
All
the
right.
content. No, and all that. This is a huge scaffolding effort of who do we know. So getting, you know, anytime you can bring people to the trail or talk the trail up in another venue, it's a big help. Yeah, and then other than that, it's always the need for cash. So we do a pretty good.
Tim, have you approached Northern Border Regional Commission?
No.
I would inquire.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do that. Yeah, COVID. So our funding again, our strategy has been to fundraise to build the trail and then to hold events on the trail to pay for maintenance. And we're just at the tipping point now where we have enough sections of trail in different towns to start holding events. Well, it's really hard to hold on trail events in the middle of a pandemic. So we sort of got derailed on that last year, but I think you'll see us start to do more this year, even if they have to be, you know, start independently and record your own time. Event companies have learned how to do this, and we'll start to shift to that model and use existing sections of trail to help pay for themselves. So we're only fundraising for new sections. And equipment, Christine, if you've got a tractor or something and you want to get out there and or, you know, chainsaws, loppers, whatever, there's always ongoing needs to trim brush on new sections or mow a sunny section of the trail. The shady sections don't need much attention, but boy, when something gets exposed to sunlight, like between the driveway at Bagley and the kiosk at Bagley, that needs to be mowed a couple times a year.
Great. Now, do you have certain standards or things that you have to abide by, or are you saying like you can literally volunteer for a section and be like, hey, there's this tree, I'm gonna go, you know, take the loppers and make it so it's not in someone's face?
We will let you do that. We would love it if you would sign our volunteer waiver form before you.
Oh, okay, yeah. Cool. All right.
I'm well enough trained. I don't need my lawyer to say that, but we have one on the board. It's great. Yeah. Anybody else for anything? No. All right, folks. Thanks very much. We'll try not to be so hard to find, and we'll keep going with trail efforts.
Thank you for your efforts.
You're welcome. Thanks all for joining. And Nancy, give us a couple of days to get these slides up. I'll post some links. Hopefully I can get them up on our website, which we don't update as much as we should, but I'll jump in there again.
Yeah. And thanks for the survey and the results from
that's
the
huge.
Dartmouth crew. That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And we're getting a lot of help from a lot of folks, and you know we need it. But it's good. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Good work. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Night, everybody.